All right, folks, here it is. I'm going to get into my top 10 quarterbacks entering the 2024 NFL season. And just want to mention a couple of things off the top. One, I think this is as rich of a quarterback league as we've ever had. I mean, we're going to get into some honorable mentions in a second, and there's 6-7 guys where you're like, if I put them top 10, you could be like, I could see that argument. But a couple of these, you're like, man, just doing the math, they may not be top 15, which is just wild to think about. So I think we're really blessed right now with good quarterback play. And two, I want to hear from you guys in the comments. Let me know what you guys think about my list. And this list is kind of just if I'm building a team for 2024, not long term for this year, who do I want? That's how I ranked it. 1 to 10. Let's go. Let's get into it. Some guys who just missed the cut on my top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL for 2024 list going into the season. Of course, it can change. Again, there's some good players, man. Guys like Jordan Love didn't crack my top 10. I'd probably have him at 11. You could argue 9, 10, 11. You'll see once I reveal 9 and 10. Aaron Rodgers, 40 coming off an Achilles. His last full season in Green Bay wasn't great either. So, look, if you want to call me a hater, that's fine. But it's hard for me with those facts to put him top 10, especially considering I think the Jets are kind of a mess of an organization. Kirk Cousins, same deal. He's played like a top 10 guy the last few years. He's 36, not athletic, torn Achilles last year. New team, a lot of unknown there. Very good, just couldn't put him top 10, especially with the lack of playoff success there. Kyler Murray, top 10 talent. He's had some injuries. I thought he played really well down the stretch last year. I think he could get back into that top 10 conversation with Marvin Harrison Jr., but he's on the outside looking in. Jalen Hurts, really disappointing year last year. If he can get back to what he was 2 years ago, certainly played at a top 10 level, but you look at his career now, he's played at a super high level for one season. And this is his fourth full season as a starter coming up. It's a big year for Jalen. He needs to play better this year. Tua, and listen, I don't like Tua as much as others. I get the regular season stats, but the facts remain that in cold weather and in big games, he has underperformed in a major way. Very good player. I can't put him top 10 based on the list I put together here. And then Trevor Lawrence. As crazy as it sounds, he might be like 15, 16, 17 right now. Disappointing year last year, was banged up. Very talented, certainly a top 10 capable player and has played like it at times, but has not been consistent enough. So I think outside the top 10 is worthy. And I think some people would say Trevor Lawrence, not better than Brock Purdy. He's certainly more talented, but this is where we have to ditch where people were drafted a little bit. Now, Brock Purdy is in a great situation. There's no doubt about it. But you can't dismiss what he's done either. Back-to-back 30-touchdown years, I believe. Or I guess 2 years ago he didn't play a full season, but for 17-game on pace, he would have thrown 30-plus. He's 4-2 in the playoffs, has gone to an NFC Championship game, which he fucked up his elbow, so he didn't finish that game. And in the second year, he got to the Super Bowl and almost won it. Yes, he's in a great situation. He's tough to place. You could argue as high as 5 or 6. You could argue 13 to 15. I think 10's fair. He's a very good, very smart, very accurate player, good decision maker, but he benefits greatly from playing in a Kyle Shanahan offense that runs the ball first with Christian McCaffrey and has Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and others. We'll see what happens with Ayuk. Who knows? By the time you're watching this, maybe something has happened. But, I got him at 10. He's won 4 playoff games in 2 years. I think he deserves credit there. Want to see more, but he's done everything they've asked of him. Dak Prescott at number 9. Kind of the antithesis of Brock Purdy, right? Certainly carries more on his plate in Dallas. Certainly is in the spotlight more than Brock Purdy. Was runner-up for MVP last year. But let's face it, in the biggest games of his career, for the most part in playoff games, he hasn't played as well. He's shrunk a little bit in the playoffs. Now, he's won 2 playoff games. He's not like one of these guys who's won 0-1. Like, 2 has only been a 1, lost it convincingly. Kirk Cousins has 1 career playoff win. So I got him ahead of those guys. But, I think Cowboys fans out there are kind of tired of Well, yeah, he wins 12 games a year, but then we lose in the wild card of the divisional round. They're sick of it. This is a pivotal year for Dak Prescott. I would say over the last 3 to 5 years, he's played top 6 to 8 QB level of play for the most part for the Cowboys. But I've got him at 9, and, you could argue outside top 10, depending on your criteria, because of the lack of playoff success. So I've got him at 9 here. This is a big year for him and McCarthy and that whole organization. They got to break through, and we'll see if they can do it. Jared Goff at number 8. I don't really think there's much that Goff does better than Dak, for example. Dak, better athlete. I think they have similar arms. Both have good arms, not great arms. But Jared Goff is more proven in big games. We've seen him play for a Super Bowl. We've seen him play for an NFC Championship game in 2 different organizations. Like, he has delivered at a high level in big games. Now, he hasn't always. McVay got kind of tired of him at the end, so he traded him, and they won a Super Bowl with Stafford, so it hasn't been perfect. But Detroit has done nothing for 30 years, and now they're considered one of the elite teams in the NFL. He deserves credit. Now, kind of like Brock Purdy, he's in a perfect situation. And in Goff's career, it's been proven that if you put a really good offensive line in front of him, he can play at a high level. Like, you don't even need star receivers. Like in LA, they had good receivers. They didn't have stars. But if you protect this guy, his intermediate passing is fantastic. I don't know if there's a better over the middle of the field thrower than Jared Goff. That 20-yard in route, no one throws it better. He throws it as good as anybody in this league. And he's got Amon-Ra St. Brown, and he's got Ben Johnson, and their offensive line is terrific. So I can't put him higher than 8 because we saw at the end of his time in LA, if you don't have things really good around him, he kind of crumbles a bit. If teams can get pressure on him with the front 4, it's not great. He's not an awesome cold weather quarterback, but he has won some of those games. Like, it's not Tua where it's you go into freezing Kansas City, we got no chance. Goff won a game in Seattle in the playoffs. Goff has won 2 years ago. They knocked Green Bay out of the playoffs in Week 18 in a freezing cold game in Lambeau, and he played well, outplayed Aaron Rodgers. So he's won big games in the cold. Not perfect in cold weather, certainly much better indoors, but hey, they play in a dome. That matters. CJ Stroud at number 7. I get it, it's been 1 year. But ran away with Rookie of the Year. What a playoff game. One of the best rookie seasons for any quarterback ever. And I think context matters here. The Texans were an absolute joke when they drafted him. The Deshaun Watson debacle, the 3 coaches in 3 years. You hire a defensive coach who I love in DeMeco Ryans, but still, and he still goes out there and plays unbelievable and wins a playoff game in his first year. I'm projecting a bit here. And so, if you want to say I'm changing the rules for one guy over the others, I'm using my eyes. I don't see how this guy doesn't continue to improve. They add Stephon Diggs. Tank Dell's going to be back and healthy. Like, this guy's a high-level player. Insanely accurate. I think he's really good. And he's also a guy that the elements factor in. Like in college, he wasn't as good in cold weather. They're in the South and they're indoors. Like, he benefits from where he plays. Now, kind of like Tua, if he has to go on the road in the playoffs, he's going to have to play in cold weather. But I think he's more built to do that. Like in those games he lost in college to Michigan, he still played pretty well, especially in that first game in Ann Arbor. They just couldn't stop Michigan's run game. He put up huge numbers. I think he threw for like 400 yards. So I'm bullish on Stroud. I think the Texans got a really, really good player here. Number 6, Justin Herbert. No playoff success. Blew a huge lead to Trevor Lawrence and the Jags. But you just watch this guy play, and he just does shit that other people can't. Rocket arm, really good athlete, can make all the throws. And let's face it, his coaches that he's played under have been disgraceful. Anthony Lynn's not a head coach. And totally blanking on their last coach. Brandon Staley is even more of a joke. And now you have a real coach, Jim Harbaugh. And as good as that is, and why it's a part of why I think he'll continue to ascend here, Now the pressure really does ramp up. Like, the pressure is on to start winning more games and winning playoff games. So, I'm big on Justin Herbert. I think he's a big-time talent. I think the coach excuse is valid here, but not anymore. You've got one of the best 6 or 7 football coaches on the planet right now in Jim Harbaugh. You got to go deliver. If not, then the detractors will have a lot of ammunition when it comes to Justin Herbert. Get to my top 5 in a second, but hit that subscribe button here on 4Verts. We crossed 1,000 subscribers here on the channel. Let's get to 2,000 as soon as possible. Continue to cover the big storylines coming out of training camp in the preseason, segments like this. We'll get some college football content rolling here as well as the regular season's just about a month away. Let's get it popping. Subscribe, turn on those notifications. That way you never miss an episode. Okay, number 5, Matthew Stafford. I am a big Stafford fan, and I thought in Detroit he got a bad rep. And look, I get it. Jared Goff has done more winning there than Stafford ever did, but the infrastructure of that team is just so much better now. And remember, on the flip side of that trade, Goff couldn't break through and win a Super Bowl. Got him there. Was a reason why they got there. First year, they win one together, him and McVay. I think Stafford's the best quarterback in the NFC. Now, I think he's a little bit older. His window's shrinking a bit. 36. He's probably got 2, 3, 4, maybe more cracks at this thing. But since pairing with McVay, first year they won a Super Bowl. Second year, he had the elbow issue. He was banged up. But then last year, again, he was terrific. Like, if they win that game in Detroit in the wild card round, which they were very close to doing, they might have gone to the Super Bowl. I mean, the Rams were rolling at the end of last season. I think when he's healthy, he's the best and most proven quarterback in the NFC. A conference that's much more manageable. So if he can stay healthy this year, if that defense can overcome the loss of Aaron Donald, they're going to be in the mix in the NFC. That pairing together can go a long way. And Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, that's a pretty good duo for Stafford to throw to. At number 4, I got Lamar Jackson, and it's a tricky one here because he's the only guy on this list with multiple MVPs outside of, you guessed it, Patrick Mahomes. He's going to be number 1. No shocker there. I can't go top 3 for Lamar, though. He's got to be better in the playoffs. He's kind of like Dak, but a tier higher. Now, in Lamar's case, he got to an AFC title game last year. So he broke through that threshold, which Dak Prescott hasn't done. And obviously, Lamar's had more regular season success than Dak, all that stuff. But his numbers, guys, plummet in the postseason. 6 touchdowns passing to 6 interceptions. 57% completion guy. The turnovers skyrocket. To crack top 3, he's got to play better in January. Like, he let them down big time in the AFC title game last year. If you told me that they would have held Kansas City to 17 points, I'm like, you should win that game. Chiefs defense is really good, but you can get 20 points. 17-10, and he made mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake. He was horrible. He was absolutely horrible. And there are other playoff shortcomings. They lost to the Titans that one year, a couple other times. He hasn't played well. So he's terrific. I would love to go to war with this guy as my quarterback, but I can't put him in the top 3 because all 3 of these other guys have played better in the games that matter most. And that's where we get to Joe Burrow, my number 3 guy. 2 and 3, you can debate, I think, till the cows come home. There's pros and cons to both. The biggest issue with Burrow is health. He's played 4 seasons, and in 2 of those, he's had a season-ending significant injury. ACL his rookie year, wrist surgery last year. And he just got cleared a couple of weeks ago with that wrist, and it's one of those situations where he's got to rest it a little bit. Like, he's got to take time off sometimes in camp. So, look, to me, when he's healthy, maybe clearly strong, but I'd have him number 2 because he's beaten Allen head-to-head in a big playoff game. He takes better care of the football, and he can stand in there in the pocket and deliver the football more consistently than Josh Allen. His 2 healthy seasons, they've gone to the Super Bowl, and they lost a tight game in the AFC Championship to Kansas City. Like, he is a proven big game player and a big game winner. Now, statistically, when we get to Josh Allen, he's actually been better, but winning those games carries a little bit more weight. And so I would have him 2, but the health concerns are real for me. So if you're picking, hey, who do I want to go into 2024 with, Joe Burrow or Josh Allen? I got to go Josh Allen, which is why I've got him at number 2. His biggest issue is turnovers, especially in the regular season. A lot of turnovers, takes a lot of chances, bites him. But you know what? If the guy's going to put up 40-plus touchdowns every year, had 44 last year, guys, they were dead last year. They were 6-6. Everybody thought McDermott was going to get fired. They fired their OC. They're like 3 games out with a month to go in the division. They win the division. And they should have beat Kansas City in the divisional round. And they didn't. Once again, he lost to Mahomes, which is why Mahomes is 1 and he's 2. But people act like Allen hasn't played well in the postseason. You're just not paying attention. 5-5 in the playoffs is pretty good for one. 5 playoff wins at his age, that's a pretty good number. He's gone to an AFC championship game. I think he's won at least 1 playoff game in each of the last 4 years. I get it. He's fallen short in some big games. But other than that blowout loss to Cincinnati a couple of years ago when the Bengals ended up going to the Super Bowl, he has not really been the reason that they've lost. I mean, look at this guy's numbers in the postseason. 21 touchdowns to 4 interceptions passing. He's rushed for 5 more. He's thrown for a ton of yards. He's been accurate. And remember, his first couple of years, he was kind of just all over the place. And so those numbers have only gotten better. His playoff numbers are better than Burrow's, believe it or not. Burrow has just found a way to win these games late, which he deserves credit for. But given the health concerns with Joe Burrow, I would lean Josh Allen by the slightest of margins entering this season. If Burrow goes out there, plays 17 healthy games, and beats Josh Allen in a high-leverage game this year, the pendulum would shift back to Burrow for me. But for now, I'd have to go with Josh Allen. Dynamic, rocket arm, big. He can run around. He's number 2 for me. And then number 1's easy. It's Mahomes, and it's not even close. Now, you can argue it's close from a talent standpoint or from a statistical standpoint, especially in the regular season. Like, Mahomes didn't have his best regular season last year. But the guy is 15-3 in the playoffs. He's won 3 Super Bowls, played in a 4th. The floor for Patrick Mahomes, since he has taken over as a starter, is losing in overtime in the AFC Championship game. Think about that. The floor for him is losing in the AFC Championship game. Did it his first year as a starter to the Patriots when he didn't even get to touch the ball in the old overtime rules. And in 21, they blew it against Cincinnati. The late half blunder where Tyreek Hill got tackled in bounds. They flustered that big lead. They just never responded. Lost in overtime in that game. Other than that, they're in the Super Bowl every year. He's won 3 of 4. Like, this guy's already a first ballot Hall of Famer if he does nothing else the rest of his career. He's a clear number 1. Now, again, if you want to debate talent and style of play, all that stuff, but when you add it all up, 15-3 in the playoffs, at least making it to overtime of the conference championship game every year, I mean, he is the undisputed best player in the league, and I don't even think it's close. I don't think a GM on the planet would take anyone else over him at the quarterback position. I think Buffalo would trade Josh Allen and like 4 first-round picks for Patrick Mahomes. Maybe that's crazy thinking, but we've seen him do it over and over and over and over again. So he's the top guy by far. All right, there you have it. My top 10 quarterbacks with some honorable mentions entering 2024. It's a good QB league right now, man. It's going to be a fun season, but that number 15 in Kansas City, he holds the throne until proven otherwise. See you next time. Be sure to subscribe to Verts.